let's continue our exploration of how to use Carrara and Dog Waffle. In this one I want to take this Meteor. This is a lengthy animation I did a while back. I want to turn it first of all into a shorter one because there is only one cycle needed, and then I want to have some sort of a animation where we just put it all together and have two of these Meteor crash and explode in space, colliding together. So first of all I'm going to load that AVI. Load the AVI like this and find it there. So this is the long one, the glowing Meteor. It's got 600 frames, and first time I loaded that I remembered, oh yeah, that's way too long. I don't really need this entire cycle to go multiple times. I can take just one. So one way to do that when you load it is load the AVI and indicate, okay, there we go, and then actually set the the animation to go just one cycle. You see it here. Boom, that's one cycle, about 120 frames. Let's take a few more and then we can cut a few off later on. Let me zoom in a little bit and you can see here it's doing a full turn. Now one thing I want to do is really find the first frame to be identical with the last frame, and we don't want to overshoot there. So one way to do that is you take this first frame and you copy that to the swap buffer. Image, copy to swap buffer there, to the swap image. Now we have it there. We can combine the swap and the main buffer. You can layer mix them together, but let's do that in a different way, maybe an additive or a let's try screen mode, so you can see them both. You can see the one in the back, the swap buffer is not rotating. The one that's the animation in front, the main buffer, is rotating, and then that way we can see when it's overshooting. And there we go. So we can go to the last frame and see when we delete a frame one at a time. Let's go delete this one. It tracks back until we have them lined up exactly. Probably one more. Let's see here. It's hard to say. Let's go use the arrow keys here. Yeah, we may be doing one more here. So let's go to the last and delete that one. So now I think we have a perfect cycle where the first frame is identical to the last frame. Yep, you can see when you click here on the left and you click here on the right to go to the last frame, you don't see a difference. It doesn't move. So you can now disable this layer blending or this layer mixing between the main and the swap buffer, and we know that we have an animation where the last frame is identical to the first one. Now we may want to even delete the last one, because if we're going to pick this up as an animated brush, we don't want it to pause there for the last frame to see it twice. But we can always do that later if we pick it up as a custom animated brush and if it's really visible as a little glitch. So we have a total of 121 frames, and what I'll do, one thing you'll want to do there is save it as an AVI, save it as an image sequence. I recommend doing a few saves just to make sure there is one that's good. Sometimes you forget which codec you're using, or you have JPEG sequence and it introduces some loss. So one thing I'm going to do here is now pick this up as a custom brush. We can actually do that in two different places. One is you can go to the first frame and select something like this here. Where is it? There, the custom animated brush, and pick this up. But before you let go of that selection, hold the Alt key, press and hold the Alt key. So now it's picking that entire sequence from here on to the last frame, and we've actually picked up the whole thing as a custom animated brush. I can set the opacity. It's opaque. All right, we see the whole background black is also is not transparent. We need to key to that. So right click on the same custom brush selection tool and pick the transparency. Don't give it any tolerance there. Make it very tight to only the black part to be transparent, and anything else, even if it's very dark, you don't want that. You still want that to be opaque. That's a brush you can store and manage a copy of it here. Now another way to do that would be to actually save this as an AVI. Let me go back to disabling the preview here. You can save it as an AVI and then load the AVI directly into the custom brush, right? And then do the color keying. So let's show that. I actually did save the AVI already, so I'm going to now go to the brush and animated brush, AVI to animated brush. So when you do that, you will see the folder where you were doing that the last time. You can glow. Here's a short version of that glowing meteor, and load that. It sees it's a 256 squared image, number of frames 121 in this one, and you don't need to load them all. If you want, you could say I want just up to 120, but it's recommended to take them all if you need them all. And you can always, after it's been loaded into the custom brush, you can actually delete the last frame one at a time. So let's store this one as well, and that would be here on the store and manage copy. This one, oh, we didn't do the custom brush, the color keying yet. So that's what you can do by right-clicking on the custom brush selector, or you can go to the filter, transparency, color key, and there you can go now and tighten it very subtly here. Make sure it's really just one little notch. You don't want to go in too much, because otherwise some of the dark parts of the Meteor will also turn semi-transparent. So you want to be just a tiny little bit. There, that's good enough. And store that brush. Okay, this one we don't need anymore. This we don't need. So now we have this one. We can either use this one or this one. I'm going to use this one. This one here, if we paint with it, now we see that it has a transparent background. And now one thing we may want to do is perhaps draw it a little bit smaller. And there we go, or draw it a little bit bigger. That's what we mean when we say store and manage. It's that, when we go to the brush and say store and manage, you're not just storing a copy of it, it also lets you manage that stored copy and do all sorts of things with it, including changing the hue, changing the appearance of it a little bit, so you have some variance to that. If you need to reset everything, you can click reset, and there it is. And so now what I'd like to do is actually render that spinning Meteor twice, have two of them in collision mode, right? So we'll have a bunch of them, actually just small ones in the background that go by themselves, and then two of them kind of come together and explode in a collision. In fact, let's start with an animation that's blank. Let's create a new image. That's going to be one of those bigger ones, something like this. Let's do a 800 by 600, why not? And turn this into an animation, and we'll make it 200 frames long. All right, and so if we wanted to paint, we could do that here. Again, remember with the Alt key, it will actually paint across the whole animation sequence. But let's make first a small one of this one here. So we'll have it kind of for the background like this, just go along like that. And we don't want to manually paint it necessarily, but we could. For the ones in the background, that could certainly work. In fact, you know what, before we even start painting our meteors, let's add some starry skies or something else. Let's see if, for instance, we can use that animated starry night. There's probably some others under render. There's a star field, that one would be pretty interesting too. I'm gonna use the animated starry night, and with the animated starry night, let's just use perhaps a few more stars. Let's not make them too big. Star count bigger, more of them. Perhaps you'd like to actually have them drift sideways. Oops. Sorry. Sorry there, I was sneezing for a second. I guess too many stars here. Stardust. What I'm going to do is have it go sideways a little bit, drift a little bit to the side, or not, and just like this is good. You can actually do the full screen preview here just to get a better idea of what it looks like. Drift a little bit to the side, yeah, why not? So that way we have a little bit of general star animation there. Okay, put that in. And then we might want to start drawing our first meteor going like this, or maybe going like this in this movement. Okay, so undo, undo, and now use the Alt key. Alright, so let's say, so we're going to have this animation. Hold the Alt key down and we have a meteor going like this. Hold the Alt key down, we have another one. Keep going. Oh, almost collided there, but didn't happen. Let's do another one like this. And a third one there, a fourth one. Okay, so we have a bunch of meteors flying all across here. And now we're going to do a big one. So let's go and reset the size for this guy. And preview it. There it is. Undo. So now we're going to have one of them, let's say this one's coming down here and the other one is going out there. Now sometimes, you know, what you might be tempted to do is paint this roughly to here and then do again, go to the first frame and paint the other one from here, but you're not going to paint at the same speed and you may end up getting there too early or not quite there yet. It's not going to look like it's doing really a collision. And so one thing I recommend is actually do the uncollision. Draw it backwards and then just reverse the animation sequence. Or you could reverse it first, draw it backwards, and then unreverse it again. So here's what I'm saying. You know, you could try this. You could go with the Alt key down. You could paint here and then paint another one here. But when, you know, are you really close enough to really make it look like a collision? It might be easier to actually start with where they are collided and then move backwards, move away from it. So what I'm going to do is first reverse the animation, if that's even necessary, but hey, why not do that since we can, and go to this and say, okay, I'm going to draw from here and move away. After that, I'm going to actually reverse the animation. It's going to go in the other direction. So let's go something like this. Let's undo this. Okay, so now, and maybe we want them to move slower, so let's make sure the step distance is even a little bit less, something like this. All right, there. So now we don't want them to be exploding or contacting each other exactly at the beginning of the animation, which is going to be the end of the animation after we reverse it. So we need to move in a little bit so we have some frames left for the actual explosion part where the glow is going to show. So here we have, let's go with the Alt key down and just get this guy out of the scene. Right? And so now we have this animation like that. We just barely managed to get out of it here without recycling and seeing the meteor again. Actually, that wouldn't be too hard, but I mean, one way we could also make the next one, for instance, to make really a safe bet as to where it needs to be before it collides. This next one, instead of drawing it manually, you can do the animation with the brush keyframer and paint it right there. Go to where the other one shows, just about there, right? And have this guy go perhaps like this on this path. So give him perhaps a linear path and say it's just about here when they collide, and keyframe that. And here, before that, it's just transparent. So let's opacity, boom, gone. That would be before that, and all the way before that it's just stays transparent, and then here it appears and we need it to move away just very slowly. You know, there's this big guy coming in sideways, pretty high speed. The other one may just be minding its business and just drifting a little bit, or maybe it's actually coming from the camera, so it's actually a little bit bigger at first, right? And I mean, when we have it here, maybe we have it like this, bit bigger, and it's just spinning a little bit faster. But other than that, it was just minding its business, going like this, and just at the wrong place at the wrong time, boom, that's when they explode, or that's when they collide. And now we need to render that, and then we'll render the additional details. So now we have them actually reverse animation, and now we need to reverse that again so that we bring them in the right sequence. So reverse frames, there you go. So now we actually see them come together, boom, that's when they explode. So now we're going to have a big bright glow here as the explosion happens. So that we do with the timeline, and with the timeline editor we can go to the animation at the very bottom, lens flares, there you go, and enable or show the flare settings. We're gonna need one that looks cool. I mean, something, maybe we switch. Here we have, okay, we don't need this thing anymore. Let's remove the preview. So we're going to, I said remove the preview, there you go. We are going to show when they make contact, kind of a green flash initially here. So something like this, right? Just as they touch. So initially here, no flare. Let's keyframe that. And then just shortly after that, they have made contact right around here, and we have a big bright glow. Boom. Right, kind of a nuclear blast. And then it fades away on that. And we'll actually add another we'll add another one too. This one will just gradually disappear again. Maybe fade away like this. So apply that. Boom. There you go. That's the first one. Now we'll switch to a different lens flare. Maybe one with a bit more of a glow like this one. So this one, what we want to do is have him start only a little bit later. So we'll go and actually change it again. And it's not quite there yet. And then this one here, it's still not there yet, right? So I mean, it starts a little bit, and then at this level, that's when it's actually still prevailing. It's still there, right? So we have a slightly different behavior. We now have a bright flash right there when the initial collision is, and then we have sort of an extension or an expulsion of mass, and it moves. So one of these two is perhaps the faster one, and the whole thing needs to move a little bit with it. So maybe we'll give him a little bit of a slightly different position too, something like that, right? And then this guy, you know, maybe glow away there. So we have kind of two glows happening here. All right, and let's apply that. And so that's just some ideas on how we can composite or put multiple animations together and creating a very different animation in the end. Check this out. Wait, let's play that the speed at which needs to go at 30 frames per second. There you go. Alright, thanks for watching. There it is.